Hey, welcome back to my channel. My name is Crystal, and on this channel, I talk about my experience while in Amway/LTD. I was in LTD for almost 2 years, and on this channel, I just reflect my feelings, thoughts, opinions on the organization as a whole, and give a warning to those people who want to get in, and also encourage those who are wanting to leave. Today, I got a chance to speak to my sponsor. I sent her my video that I made originally over a year ago. I sent her that video because I wanted her to know it was out there. It was getting lots of views, and I didn't want her to happen to run across it one day and be like, "Friend, what?" So I sent her that video. She watched it and told me that she didn't realize I felt that way. And initially she told me that she felt the opposite, that she had a great experience and, didn't see it the way I saw it. But as we got a chance to sit down and interview, we actually unpacked everything that we went through, everything that we experienced, and our feelings were kind of similar on certain topics. So sit back and enjoy this interview with my sponsor, Brianna, and I'll come back afterwards with more details and information on how to talk to her and find her. Well, hey, Bri. Thank you
Hi,
so much.
Crystal.
Thank you so much for talking with me, being my sponsor, the one that got me in, just me following you, because like you were the reason why I even got in, stayed in, did anything. It was you and a couple other folks.
Yeah.
So thanks for just spending time talking to me and just telling us your experience about how you got in and kind of some things you're doing now, what you learned while you were in Amway LTD, and how you're applying that, I guess, to your life now, if you
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess tell us a little bit about yourself and whatever
Mhm.
you want to share.
Okay. Um, so my name is Brianna. I am a rehab counselor at a community college. It's my 8 to 5. And then I also do life coaching. I coach women who've been cheated on in their marriages. And I always get choked up on this. I don't even know what else to say. But yeah, I think that's the bulk of it. Like, I'm a counselor. So basically I just love helping people. So that's kind of just like the core of who I am.
So what she didn't say was that she's a fashionista, she is a communicator, she is a performer, she raps, she dances. That's what she didn't tell y'all, but
Yes. I am. I've kind of, I put up my rap game for a while, you know what I'm saying? I haven't been so I kind of retired. I used to go by Big Bree was my rap name. Uh
Big
But I
Bri.
kind of retired, and yeah, I do have a fashion blog. I do blog fashion. People have kind of made me do that, but it's all good. It works out.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. So I guess we'll get started. I guess tell us your journey of how you kind of started with Amway and kind of what made you want to join in the first place.
Oh yeah. I honestly was looking for something like, and I'm not gonna say it was necessarily Amway, but what they presented to me, I was looking for. So the year that I actually joined, like maybe six or 7 months before that, I had wrote out the goals that I wanted to accomplish for the rest of the year. And basically it was like I wanted to find a mentor and join a mentorship program. And then I had wrote out that I wanted to attend leadership conferences. And then I also wrote on there that I wanted to be debt free. So that was like my mindset, right? Like these are all of the things, and like literally verbatim, those were the things that I wanted. And so when my sponsor, who's also my good friend, like I really started to see the growth more so in her marriage on IG. Like I just noticed a lot of growth in their marriage, and that became very attractive to me. And so even when I would communicate with her, like she never threw Amway out there, she never even threw the business out there. She was just always talking about, like, she would make me mad because every time I hit her up, she'd be like, "Hey girl, I'm sorry. I was at a conference, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, why is this happening in so many conferences? You know what I'm saying? And then she would send me pictures, and she would send me pictures, but she would send me pictures of like her at the conference, like speaking and stuff like that. And it just made me, it just was really attractive to me. And I remember I used to ask her about stuff like what podcast she was listening to as far as like leadership and what book she was reading. And so she was sending me like all this stuff, but then she would even say, like, my mentor recommended this book. This is a really good book. And I was like, oh, okay. And I read it. It was The Slight Edge. And then I asked her one time about podcasts, what to listen to. And she was like, well, I have a subscription through my leadership mentorship program. And but here's a good person to listen to. And so like that type of stuff started to sink in, and so I kind of noticed. And so when she presented the business to me, just because I was seeing the growth in her, and then I was looking for those things anyway in my personal life, that's kind of what drew me in.
Okay. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
what, like, how did you actually get sponsored? Like, did you ask her, like, if you could join, or like, did she eventually tell you how, or how'd that go about?
I actually went to her because so at this time, like, so even at this point in my life, it was in a very, very dark space. Um, because I hadn't admitted to people that my ex-husband and I were separated. So I was still telling people we were still married, but which we were, but we were separated. And so originally when she offered it to me, because you know how it works, and she was like, me and my husband would be willing to sit with you and your husband. So check with your husband and see when he, and so like I said, I hadn't shared with anybody that he and I were separated. So I told her, I was like, okay, I'll check with my husband. And so she followed back up. And then I was like, yeah, girl, I followed up with my husband. He said he doesn't think it's a good idea at the time. I was lying. I never asked him, but I didn't want to at that point tell her that. So fast forward like months later, or maybe even a year later, probably almost a year later, I was talking to her, and now I'm in a better space where I'm finally able to admit that we're living in separate places and I'm ready to get divorced. And so blah 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 blah. And so I admitted that to her. And because I told her, I said, I really wanted to sit down and talk to you and your husband. I said, but you wanted me to ask my husband, and we're have separate finances and all this type of stuff. And so literally the next day, because she told me who her sponsor was, and me and her sponsor graduated high school together. So I kind of already knew her sponsor. So it was funny because I was thinking about just reaching out to my friend's sponsor personally and just asking, hey, do you think it'd be a good idea? Like, do you think I could be a good fit for the mentorship program? And so that same day that I was thinking about it, my sponsor reached out and was like, hey, I talked to my sponsor. I kind of shared with her a little bit of letting her know that you and your husband are separated. And she said that it would be okay. She'd be willing to have a conversation with you separately, if you're open to that. And so that's really how it was. Cause if she didn't reach out to me that way, I was already developing a plan to reach out.
Wow. I
Yeah.
remember you telling me that, I think you told me that you were kind of ashamed to share with them that you were separated from your husband, but when you did, like, they comforted you. Like, there was no, like, judgment. There was no, like, them saying anything that was kind of hurtful to you. You felt welcomed.
Yeah.
Did I make that up, or did you actually say that?
No, that was very true. Even our upline, was like, we're gonna pray for you. And they actually even prayed right when I told them, they prayed with me right then. And then they prayed with me. Well, they prayed for me. And then they would actually check on me throughout and just see how I was doing mentally.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
that's one of the things that actually drew me in as well, because I've heard stories from other people from other groups that have went through horrible things, and our group wasn't like that. Like, we
Yeah.
had it good because people actually prayed for one another. People
Yeah.
actually, were thinking about other people. So
Hmm.
when you told me that, I was like, that's really decent of her to, I knew you knew her from before, but I thought it was really decent of her to pray for you and not judge you and be like, okay, how do we move forward?
Yeah.
Um, that's a really pleasant thing to experience.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
tell us about your experience while you were in it. How you felt going to conferences, how you felt, sponsoring, networking, all that stuff. Tell us everything.
That's a loaded question for you. Um, um, okay, so let's start with conferences. I enjoy conference, like even to this day, even though I'm no longer a part of Amway, I still like they put me in a good habit of going to conferences. So I still make it a point to attend at minimum one personal development conference a year. So yeah, like conference time, like I was so excited. Like I really did. I was just super amped up about conferences because you have to understand again, like my story, like I asked for this because I had written this out in my goals. So for me, this was just like a godsend thing. So I was just really like, God, I thank you. And so going into every conference, I was like that. And I did appreciate the fact that they tried to make it like inexpensive for us in terms of like traveling, so renting a van and people sharing rooms, because conferences can get pricey, paying for ticket, like because you're on your own. So that's
Mhm.
one thing about being on your own, like everything is on you. But it was nice in that regards of like splitting it with the team, so the cost wasn't as cheap, and they did a good job of like giving us receipts and stuff so we could use it as write-offs for our businesses and stuff. So it was very cool in that. I mean, as far as though them 16, 14, like those were like the first couple of times I was giddy. Like I was so excited. But after a while, I was like, Jesus, I'm just too old for this. Like my neck, I can't get the right angle on this 16
My
passenger van. And
knees.
the way you lay, sometimes that seatbelt will choke you. So you got to lay just right. You know what I'm saying? Like it be like, I was just like, God, it took me a while to recuperate when I came back from each conference because yeah, it was rough in them bands. And yeah, so the travel part was really, really rough. Um, but overall the conference was nice. I think that um I I'm a people pleaser and I care what people say. So like the conferences were like you had to be gung ho, and for the most part, you didn't sleep. And there were times where I was so sleepy, but I felt bad. You know what I'm saying? I felt
Yes.
really bad
Yeah.
being an early bird, because they always said like associated all costs association. And I will say, and it's not anything negative, because by far this was a great experience for me, but it was like I think they kind of embedded, well, this is how I received it. Let me say that. I received it that if you did not associate and if you did not, do all the things that everybody else was doing, you were deemed as not taking it serious, or, you know what I'm saying? You were deemed as like, you can't be successful if you don't stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and then turn around and get back up for conference that starts at 8. So you got to leave at 7. So you got to get up at 7, you know what I'm saying? Then you really got to get up at 6 because you're sharing a hotel with 3 other women. So it was a lot of like, it's a lot, but again, I enjoyed the conferences and stuff, but I think that that part of the experience can kind of become overbearing for certain people, I would say.
I really appreciate your contrast and opinion from mine, because I remember when I shared my video with you, you were like, "Friend, I didn't know you felt that way because you didn't really feel that way." But everything you just said, I felt that because it was like I think going to conferences turned me off of conferences because it was such a like process. I almost dreaded it because I was just like, okay, we got to sit in this van for 14 hours. And like you said, we can't sleep, girl. And your head be doing this, your knee hurting, all kind of stuff. And then you're right, when you get there, you do feel like you have to stay up and partake in everything, or else you're not taking it seriously.
Mhm.
And I felt the exact same way. I felt
Mhm.
like um if I need to go to bed, and if I go to bed, I felt like it was going to be like, well, she doesn't want this. She's not hungry, which just isn't true. The truth is I was exhausted. And like you
Yeah.
said, having to stay up for night owls and stuff like that, and then waking up the next morning for the morning session, it just, after like the first conference, I was like, this is crazy. I can't remember anything. I'm learning. I'm sleepy. And then
Mhm.
I remember when you came into our hotel room, I think you had got me pizza, right?
That hurt my heart. Oh, don't bring it up. That hurt my heart, friend.
I was
Like a
knocked
stab.
out. I was
Oh, I
knocked
came in that
out.
room.
I was so tired. Like I took, because I think I didn't qualify for that night out or something. So I was like, bad. I'm gonna go in the room. I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna take a shower.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna sleep. I knocked out like the minute my head hit that pillow. And when you came in with that pizza, I looked at you like, because I couldn't see. I didn't have my glasses on. I looked at you like, who is that? First of all, like I'm trying to sleep. And I remember that next day, you looked at me side eyed. You were like, I was like, I didn't mean to, friend. I was half asleep. I didn't even know it was you.
Hurt my whole little feelings.
So I can completely relate and also empathize with you when you said that that part of the conference was challenging.
Yeah.
And I was almost embarrassed to invite others on because I was just like, the fact that it was just so exhausting. I didn't want anybody to be like that, to turn anybody off from the other
Yeah.
information we're getting,
Yeah.
like the books and stuff, which was my absolute favorite part.
Mhm.
Um, so conferences. So what about other things? Like how was networking for you? How was
Yeah.
the process of like the QIs? What about that stuff?
Mhm. Well, and I think too, like something I'm thinking about is, like now a lot of people are speaking to this hustle culture, like that's not a thing, right? And I think that that is so important because, for the past couple of years, we were hearing, if you want to be successful, you don't sleep. You know what I'm saying? And you got to grind all the time. So I'm so glad that now there's this new message out there that says that ain't cool. Like, that's not productive. That's not good for your mental health. And it's really not good for your creativity. And
Hmm.
so I really am grateful that we're coming into this era because that kind of is the culture within the Amway system too. Is it's like you got to grind, because a lot of the people who are successful in the business talk about how, they didn't sleep or how they don't sleep or how, they do all these things. So that is why you get so many people when they're together at the conferences. I feel like they're competing to show their value or their worth, or you know what I'm saying? Like they're trying to prove that they belong in
Yeah.
this space.
Hmm.
And so I think that that's something to note. But yeah, so as far as networking, and sorry, like I could go down this whole rabbit hole of like the mindset behind why people do what they do, because
No, do
it's,
it. Do
well,
it.
I think as I've thought about this, right? Because for me, like I said, I was someone who, this was like I was still in a very broken space in my life. So I was trying to find my space and belong in a space. But I think too, when you are not really secure 100% in yourself, then you're going to follow the crowd.
Mm.
And so it makes me question
Hmm.
how many other people in business are feeling the same way we feel, but they do it because they're following the masses in this particular structure that we're being taught. And
Yeah.
so it's great because you definitely get personal development. A bulk of where I am now is through LTD, like through the audios, through the books, and through the conferences, because I received some good words from them folks on stage. Like I really did. But I think the other component to that is just emotional and development too, of do the bulk of these people have the maturity or I'm gonna say the maturity or the I don't even know if it's maturity, but if they have like this sense of worth within themselves to say, I'm exhausted. I
Mm.
can't go anymore. I've been up since 7 a.m. It is now 12 a.m. I'm close to being up for 24 hours. I cannot go. So it makes me think that like the mindset of a lot of people are just kind of falling into, this culture that a lot of them probably don't, all of it, they don't want to do is what I'll say. So, yeah.
That was so well put. That was
Mm,
so well put because I think that you're right. I think the fact that the masses were doing one thing, I think generally speaking, as far as psychology goes, you don't want to be the outsider.
mhm,
You don't want to be the one person that says no when everybody's saying yes.
mhm.
So, like, do you feel like a lot of what you did was because everybody else was doing it? Like, was there times where you were just like, I do not want to do this because everybody else was so excited about it? Did you find yourself getting excited about it, even though you really weren't?
As far as association, yes.
Mm.
Like there were times that I did go to things and I was really exhausted or just like you said, I was just like, okay, well, dang, I know I qualify for this night out, but I'm tired. And if I go, you know what I'm saying? Then when they say it's time for the night out qualifier, because I qualify, I'm gonna look crazy if I go home. So now I know this is gonna have to be a whole long night. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
then, another thing is I'm a single woman. So traveling at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you know what I'm saying? And so there were times that I did get home late at night and like that's something to think about. I will say that our upline did a great job though of like making sure, hey, please text me, especially the single women, text me when you make it home safely. But there's still this sense of security of like, yo, I'm not married like the rest of y'all. So I don't have no man getting in the car with me at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So that was a whole thing. And so I definitely look, I don't forgot the question, but yeah, I
No,
definitely
no,
feel
keep going. This is great. This is better than what I had
oh,
to ask.
okay. No, but I definitely felt myself being pressured to do the association piece for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely. I would low key be happy when I didn't qualify because I knew I would get rest that night. You know what I'm saying? Like I knew that I would
Yeah.
get a good amount of rest that night. And like
Yeah.
with me, I naturally need 7.5 hours of sleep until I wake
Hmm.
up naturally. So going
Hmm.
off 5 hours, 6 hours, that's not the look for me.
Yeah.
And I like that you brought up being a single woman in this business. When it came to networking, how did you navigate networking as a single woman? Just kind of meeting people in the marketplace, online, whatever. How did that aspect of the business go for you?
When I did do it, it went cool. Um, I will say I did because I would talk to my upline about this a lot because like they teach us to be sociable and friendly. So there were several times where men thought I was hitting on them and then would try to ask me out on whole dates. And I'm like, sir, I'm just trying to build my network so I can get more money. You know what I'm saying? So do you want this mouth spray or not? Because that's what I'm selling right now. It's worth 15 PV if you get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, help a brother, help a sister out. But I think that it can be difficult. Because that was like initially when I started, that was one of my questions of like, I'm getting a lot of people hitting on me because they think I'm hitting on them, and I'm not. Because when you and I joined, it was like on the cusp of COVID too. So then we had to transition to online. So of course, when we sneaking in people's DMs, especially males, and we're like, "Hey, Philip, how are you? I see you like tease ball. How is that going?" And they like, "Oh, she called me by my name. She know what kind of sports I like. Oh, I think she the one." You know,
Girl,
and then it's like, "Baby, you want to go for coffee?" Um,
no.
I don't, but Do you have a mentor?
Girl.
Like,
And I would do the same thing. Like I remember this one time I was at work and this random guy walked up to me and I was like, yeah, I have a mentor. Do you want to meet him? And he was like, no, but I want to go to coffee with you. And I was like, well, I can bring him along. Like I would always like finagle that mentoring in because I was like, I do not want to go on a date. I'm trying to get my business going. So I can completely understand that.
yeah. And I will say for me, something that I noticed is like, I know women can do it because I've seen a few women in the business do it. But it's still really hard to do it as a single woman because what I noticed, um, for the most part, what I noticed is that the men handled the networking part.
Mhm.
And the men were really the ones who brought in because it really goes back to this as women, because for me, I really kind of cut down on connecting with men because it started to feel like uncomfortable for me, thinking men thinking I'm trying to hit on them. So I would connect with women, and a lot of women would have to go through their husbands, and because I didn't build that rapport with their husbands, then it was kind of shut down. And I remember I would have those conversations with my upline as well about, can a single woman really build this business? And she would talk about the women on our entire team who built it. So I know it's possible, but I think it's still kind of hard to build it as a single woman. I mean, I would say that's my opinion, but that could be, just my pre and post opinion on that too. So I don't know.
No, I feel the same way. And a lot of that it turned me off because I would notice that as well. I would notice that when it came to the business, most of the diamonds were couples, and it was typically the man that was doing all the speaking, all the networking, and the woman was kind of behind the scenes. And I kind of felt some kind of way about that because they only gave the men the rings, but the woman didn't get a ring. And I was like, how come she can get a ring? And I remember I asked you that when I first started. You were like, well, she gets everything else. And I was like, when I go diamond, I'm getting me a ring. I was like, I don't care what anybody says, I'm getting me a ring. And I also felt like the emphasis was on the man. And I know that he had he had a heart for men. Like he wanted to build men up. So I
Yeah.
understood that, but I didn't like it. You know what I mean? And I also challenged um our upline once because I would meet women on LinkedIn and they want to do it, but their husbands didn't. And I was like, well, they want to do it. Like, why can't they do it? And it was a whole debacle at one point. And I was just kind of like, I don't know if a single woman can do this thing. I felt the same way as you. Like we saw some, but I felt like it was going to be really, really challenging. And I completely understand and relate to what you're saying. Do you
Mhm.
have anything else you wanted to say about networking or about your experience?
Um, I don't know. I didn't really network.
You, what are you
Like,
talking about?
I mean, like when I did network, I networked and I attracted people for sure. But I was never, when I first started, I was definitely gung ho, like sharing my story with everybody. But after a while, I will say, like, I just didn't get the belief in myself to feel like I could actually grow the business. So then that kind of reflected outwardly, which was weird because a lot of people always told me in the business, they were like, I wish I had your personality. I'd be having all type of people in my business. And I was like, oh, you know? Um, but that was just like something internally that I was battling with. Like I didn't truly believe I could build the business. So I didn't really take a lot of action. Um, and I was always uncomfortable. Like I always felt like I was hiding something from people because of just, does and not the secrecy. I'll say just like the things that we left out to kind of reel them in. So I think that even that energy was reflected in my networking because I just felt that even though like it worked for me and it got me and it attracted me, I guess I just always felt like, oh Lord, these people gonna think I'm bamboozling them. You know what I'm saying? Because even now, when I'm out and about, I can tell when people are trying to, and I don't like that. Like people are like, have you thought about multiple ways to make income? And I'm like, okay, here we go. You know, and I have to tell them like I'm good, we had a process where we didn't push people. Like if we asked them, then we just left it at that. But even now, like there are people out here who are very bold. Like you tell them no, and they're like, "Well, what are you doing to make?" Bro, I told you no. Let that be it.
Like,
So
all
I would
that,
say,
no.
yeah. And so I would say that was it with and I think too, like rejection. Once you get rejected so much, you just be like, dang, I gotta get out here again, because you'd be so amped up and excited about, getting what was it called? I was gonna say DMT, dropping the
Oh,
message, DTP,
right.
right? Yeah, you'll be so excited about like when you drop the message and you got someone into the process, but when they would cancel out at the end, it just really like hurt your being. Like, because it's that rejection. So yeah, I to be honest, I didn't really go all in with networking like I could have or should have.
But
Well, and see, but that's the thing. Like if I really would have done it, I probably would have, what I'm saying, had a lot of people influence. But there would be times where I would go all in, and
Mhm,
then there were times where I just wouldn't do nothing.
mhm.
Um, and I felt horrible for those times too.
So do you think it was burnout? Like, because you would go hard and then you wouldn't. Then you would go hard. Like, do you think it was like mini burnouts that you were experiencing?
No, it was just belief.
Oh,
It
okay.
was just belief. Like I didn't believe in myself. And was it burnout? I don't really know. Because I would say initially, no, it
Mhm.
wasn't the burnout. I mean, thinking about it now, like it's a lot. Like I remember staying up nights, just, um, on the computer networking and all of this stuff, like trying to reach my goals and stuff. And for me, networking really brought me a lot of anxiety.
Mm.
As much as I am a people person and I can talk to people, I can talk to a stranger off the street. Like there's no problem for me.
Yes.
But networking brought me a lot of anxiety. Just because, like I said, I always felt like in the back of my head, like, but I know I want something out of you. And
Mhm.
so it just never felt organic to me. So I remember I would not do it because I would feel tense when I would do it. Like in the midst of doing it, I just felt so tense. But then it was a double-edged sword because if I didn't do it, then I felt so tense because I was feeling like I was a whole failure out here for not networking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how similar our feelings were when it came to networking because I'm like you, like I can talk to strangers, like I enjoy that talking to random people. What I would not like was having to bring up the business. I
Hmm.
just like talking to people about random stuff. Like I don't necessarily
Yeah.
want to have this guided conversation where I'm thinking about what to say next and thinking about making sure to drop the message or thinking about making sure to story share. That's
Hmm.
kind of that was my turn off to the networking aspect of it was just the fact that I had to constantly like guide and be in control of this conversation, which is kind of like manipulative. I didn't want to do that. And I
Hmm.
would also get frustrated because I would have folks go through the process. And the minute they found it was Amway, they were like, I don't want to do Amway. Like, and I would get so, because I would get people through and everything was great until that point. And I was like, I really wish we could just say it up front to save me all this issue, all this time
Yeah.
of going through this and that. But at the end of the day, we did give them some good books to read. So I guess
Yeah.
looking at it from that perspective, I guess it was also um lending value, right? Which is a lot of what
Yeah.
we said. Is it lending value?
Yeah. And I think like that's what any parts with sales and marketing and essentially it's network marketing, right? Like you don't tell the end thing. Like with marketing, it's very captivating and it's getting them in the door. And so it's showing them all the value that you have to offer before you give them the price.
Oh,
Um, so I think that that's my thing. Like I've never had a marketing desire or sales desire. And so that was the thing, like this was just so salesy and I didn't like it. Like even with the products, like I still felt like that was a sales thing that I didn't really particularly enjoy. It was just, I don't know, because I'm not a salesperson. So, me reaching out to people, trying to see if they needed more soap um and it's good products, like don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
it's like, but dang, you gotta pay $30 for 6 bars of soap. It's like I felt bad, you know what I'm saying, reaching out to people like now them vitamins and stuff, I still rock with the vitamins. I don't the vitamins. I still rock with I still rock with a lot of the products, I'm not gonna lie. But some of it I just felt bad, like are guilty reaching out to other people, asking them to put in their orders and stuff. And then especially like if you didn't um if you were close to the end of the month and you weren't meeting your PV, then you would have to figure out how to reach out to people and be like, hey, so that all of that brought me a bunch of anxiety because I don't like asking people for nothing, period, just in my life, period, but certainly not like in a sales and business way either.
Yes. Girl, you were on point because you're right. The products, most of them were great. Like one thing I could say, the products they spoke for themselves. They were
Mhm.
excellent, but that price was not. And I had customers that, especially when it came to that nutty dark chocolate bar, that thing was crack, girl. That thing was so good, but it was like $26 for like how many bars came in that box? 8?
Probably like 8.
And I remember I had a coworker, she didn't buy those. She bought like the yogurt covered ones, which were $36.
Oh
And I
wow.
gave her a sample and she was like, I love it. And I told her friend, and she was like, I can't justify spending $36 on a box of like 8 bars.
Hmm.
She's like, that literally, man. I couldn't fight her because I was like, it's true. Like it's overpriced.
Hmm.
I had no defense. And I know we had something that we said in response to that about the quality ingredients and this and that. But the truth is that spending that much money on a box of 8 bars, it made no sense a lot of the times. So you were so on point, and there was times where I barely, like I was scraping up 50 PV for customer volume because I was just like, I hated reaching out to them because, and I did what our upline said was like I would rotate my customers.
Hmm.
But there was times where they were like, I don't want anything or don't need anything. So I was just like, oh, now I gotta go find a new customer. You know what I mean? To be able to get this 50 PV. So you're on point when about that anxiety part because I felt the same way. It was just like, oh, end of the month, here we go.
Shoot, or the beginning of the month, because it's like, you know, you have to start and because they praise all these people who are, killing it in business with, all and I think this is another issue too. And then we can come back to the us putting our orders in on the first. But I you cannot have a business of your own outside of Amway. And what I noticed is that most people who were successful in this had to give up one or the other. And I think for you and I, like with you having your handbag business and me, I was trying to figure out like what I was wanting to do. And so I was finding it very hard. So I will say it's very hard to have your own personal dream and something that you're very passionate about. Um, Devoting time to that on top of networking, on top of making sure you have enough customers. So at the end of the day, you have to give up one for the other. And we heard a lot of stories from stage of people giving up their dreams and stuff of and that's okay because I think that they were truly passionate about Amway, which is great. And that's their way and their give back to the world. Like that's their way to give back to the world. But I think that you shouldn't be made to feel bad if that is not your give back to the world. And I say that because that was one of the things that I battled with internally when it was time for me to leave, was because I started to have in my psyche that if I'm not a part of Amway, I won't be successful.
Girl,
Because
yes.
you would hear that so much from the stage of like all these regular people working 8 to 5, blah blah blah, and they're never, and so it was really ingrained. So I stayed a lot longer because I battled with that internally about, okay, this is the only way I can be successful is if I stay in Amway. It's the only way. Like nobody else has ever been successful, and I think that that's the thing. Like as I'm just talking to you now, I'm thinking about that. Like I'm thinking about all the people who were killing it. They like this was their sole thing they were working on, and that's okay. But you do really have to decide, okay, when you're coming into Amway, what you gonna give up? Because you got to give up something because it exerts so much energy, you know. And for me, my other businesses on the side were very important. Like that, that's my true calling, I feel. And so, because that was why I got into business, was because I wanted to speak to young women about, and so um you have to give up one or the other is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Girl, I did not realize because I mean, I feel the same way. When I left, I was like, did I make the right decision? Because all
Mm,
I kept hearing was folks from stage saying, like, this is the only way to be successful. And the thing is that I knew that wasn't true. Like,
yeah.
we know that that's not true. We've seen tons of folks have success outside of Amway, but they almost ingrained it into our brain that when I left, I was like, am I making the right decision? Like, am I
Mm,
missing out on something that's really going to be a vehicle to take me into success? And I really
mm,
had to like snap back and be like, no, girl, like, you know that that's not your, like, you know where you're supposed to head. So thank you for saying that. And thank you for sharing that.
mm,
So what about the first of the month? You were talking like the ditto?
mm.
You said you wanted to circle back to that. How did you feel about that ditto?
It was a lot. You and I were single women. And it ended up being like what, $330 or something
Yeah.
each month in products that we had to buy.
Was it more?
And that's a lot of money because you would have to get $100, 100 PV in product. And that was a couple of people who got all the way to the end of the process that were single people. They would always say, I can't justify spending $330 because they don't even spend $330 on the items that they were going to transition into our items. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Which is true because I still have an abundance of products now, uh, because I had to buy stuff all the time. And so yeah, I do feel like that was like a lot of money, especially for a single household. Because when you're married, you still have to do the 100 PV, but that's easy because you're dividing it between two people, and you can justify 150 a piece per person, because that's typically what I spend as an individual. But it was like having to double that income, like double that as an expense, coming out. It was just a lot. And granted, I will say that when I got in and I was able to speak with our diamond about my budget, I was able to pay off like all of my debt.
mm, mhm.
So I had that additional income coming in because I paid off my debt, but essentially it was just going to the extra for my ditto each month, which is expensive.
You're right about that. You are absolutely right about that. So, at what point did you feel like, okay, it's time for me to leave or move on to do something else? How did that thought process come about?
Well, when um you stepped back, like that really hit me hard. Um, because I was like, but
It was,
it was like I part of the business was fun because you were there. And I think that you and I, developed a closer relationship because of
Yeah.
the business. So that
Mhm.
was really nice. Like I appreciated that. So because you really kept me going because you were the only reason why I didn't quit. And like when I saw you going, I was like, okay, well, let me go, at least go because I see that, I've sponsored Crystal. So let me put in the work for her. And so funny because when you came to my office that time, I already knew you was gonna tell me. I was like,
Did you
because
know?
girl, you was so darn awkward that day, and you never that awkward when you come to my office. So I remember just thinking, I wish she would go ahead and tell me she wanna lead the business. Cause I was just like, what is she waiting on? Just tell me. And then you took this long old this break, this dramatic Hollywood break. I'm like, girl, if you don't have to tell me you trying to lead a business, I have
I was so
time.
nervous. I was like, how am I gonna say it? And I came in, I was like fidgety, and I was like, hey friend.
You was so awkward. You've
Like,
never
girl.
been that awkward. So I was like, Crystal, just say it. Because I don't have the time for you today.
Oh no. I didn't know that you knew, and I didn't know how nervous I came off because I was nervous
It
telling
was
you.
bad. So how did you feel like leading up to telling, look, now I done turned into the interviewer. But how did you feel like leading up to telling me and then after you told me?
Leading up to telling you, like, I vented to my husband like a week before, and he was like, you already know the answer. It's time for you to go. So I knew I needed to tell you, but I wanted to tell you in person. I didn't want to text you. I didn't want to like call. I wanted to tell you in person. So I was like, I'm gonna do it on this day. I'm gonna do it. I wrote it down on my calendar, walk and talk to Bree. And so I think that day, it really just, because I didn't want to disappoint you, I guess. I didn't want to, because I knew me leaving would take away PD from your business. I knew that. And I didn't want to be a setback for where you were trying to go. So when I came to your office, I was like, I was just nervous. I just wanted to make sure that I communicated how I felt to you and why I was leaving. And it was, I mean, my handbag business was growing. So I just couldn't do both anymore. I just
Yeah.
couldn't. But when I really stepped back afterwards, I had a chance to actually think about the experience, how I felt, and I got to process everything. And I was like, that really was an interesting experience. Like the books were great, the relationships were great, but ultimately I was like, I don't think I would do that again. You know what I mean? So I got to think about all that stuff. So that's how I felt afterwards. And even when I texted our upline, letting her know, she was like, okay. And I was like, all right. So after that, I felt free. It was like this huge weight
Yeah.
lifted off of my shoulder. I didn't have to do daily communications. I didn't have to, you know what I'm saying, do this and that. So I felt great.
I forgot about the daily communications.
I felt
Oh,
great.
look, I completely forgot about that. That is so crazy.
Girl. But how did you feel? Like, or no, you were talking about what made you want to leave. So
Oh, yes. Okay. So yeah, okay. So you leaving hit me hard. And then I think after that, that really like because like I said, the only reason why I was doing what I was doing was because I was like, okay, I have somebody on my team to fight for. Oh Lord, now I'm gonna seem like all emotional and stuff because it's like, and then when we would go to the meetings and stuff, it just wasn't fun. Like I remember, I felt the same way. Like when I came in the room and to bring you that piece and you would sleep, it was like the first networking meeting, or what was it called on Monday, Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, network night, right?
on Sunday?
Mondays. What was the thing that we did when we would have to show the plan?
Oh, training.
Okay, training. So the first Tuesday of training, I was just like, I went to pick up my phone.
You had nobody to text.
I know everybody else is really into the training, but me and you'll be paying attention, but we'll be clowning too.
Yes,
Like we'll be
girl.
having fun. And
Yes.
so that, and then I did feel like I didn't have anybody else to relate to as far as being single. in the business, because most people were really married. But I will say what really got me into like, okay, it's time to leave was I got the opportunity. It was in January, and somebody blessed me with attending this 5-day workshop. His name is Dr. De La Toro. He's like a very prominent speaker. And somebody brought me the VIP ticket. And so in the VIP ticket, Les Brown would come on the VIP. Yes. So I'm just like, oh my, and that's like Les Brown, I'm on a live call with Les Brown for 5 freaking days. Like, how powerful is that? And at the end of the workshop, they were opening up 18 slots for people who wanted to apply to be a part of their 1-year mentorship, where they were going to be teaching you how to become phenomenal speakers. And in the workshop, the 5-day intensive workshop was powerful. Like, I learned so freaking much. So I remember one of my friends was like, because the program was very expensive and the down payment for the program was stupid expensive. But I remember one of my best friends calling me, and she was like, I believe in you, and I'm going to put the deposit down on this program for you. And I just remember crying like a baby. Like, I was like, are you serious? So the last day of the speakers workshop was the day we were headed out for conference. And by this time, like, I was the only one coming out of Dallas. So I had to pick up the van, and then I had to meet everybody to get all of the new people from Dallas. And so I drove them to our halfway, our meetup spot, and got with everybody else. And I just remember feeling guilty because I knew that I was finna leave. Like, I knew this was gonna be and the only reason why I didn't leave before then was because I was the only older member coming out of out of Dallas. And they had already asked me, hey, would you be willing to get the van and pay for the gas and all that stuff? And so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep my commitment because I don't want to get them, but I had already known, because even when we were driving into the conference, I was on the Zoom on my phone listening to this live. And I just remember just being excited, and I got my excitement back for what I was really passionate about. And that's what made me like really have this desire, because it was like my heart's desire is to speak from the stage. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is what I care to do. That is what I am passionate about. And if I have the opportunity to be under tutorage of one of the greatest, which is Les Brown, to me, that's a once in a lifetime thing. And so I just remember at that conference, like, I was very disconnected. I didn't really engage with people the way that I did. And matter of fact, I was like sometimes in the back zone out. And because in my mind, I was already like, okay, how am I going to tell my upline? How am I going to tell my upline? And so, of course, we came back on that Monday morning, right? And that was my call. I think I gave them Monday to like, regroup. And then we talked that Tuesday, and I called my sponsor, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel after you walked away?
I felt just like you. I felt initially relief of like, oh my gosh. Like you said, like, there's no more of the task. There's no more of the networking. There's no more of any of that. But then it was like I had remorse of like, because I remember texting someone and was like, I don't know if I did the right thing. And they were like, do you trust God? And I was like, yeah, I do. And they were like, well, then, like, what are you afraid of? Because if you prayed about your decision, and what are you tripping off of? Like, God's going to cover you for whatever it is. But, again, I was really thinking like the only way that I'm going to be successful is if I do this. And, my sponsor, she was very cool. Like, And I appreciated her because she was like, I totally get it. She was like, for some people, Amway is seasonal. She was like, some people, because I think she could hear like the disappointment and the disdain and the fear in me. And
Mm-hmm.
so she just reassured me. She was like, for some people, Amway is meant to take them to a certain place in their life, and that's okay. And then she was like, and for some people, they're supposed to be here for a lifetime, and that's okay. And she was like, it just seems like your time is up. It got you to where it needed to get you to. And, and then, with her sponsor, who team we were on, it was still supportive, but it was still like well, it was made to seem like, but Amway is the way that would this is the true vehicle. And
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of like made me feel like maybe I didn't make the right decision, just
Yeah.
because it's like you wish me luck. Like it's like me saying, well, Crystal, I wish you luck on your handbag business. But Amway will really help you, blah, blah, blah. It's the door to help you fund your business. But it's like understanding that you don't have Amway is not the only vehicle to success.
Wow. I didn't realize that you got that response. Um, so what advice do you want to give to anybody who's in and currently wants to leave, or somebody who's in and they're like, I'm going diamond? Well, I don't know what y'all talking about. I'm going diamond. Like, what advice do you have to give to them?
If you're going diamond, I just really say it's just really what the audio say about um it's gonna take a lot of work. And it's gonna take you delaying a lot of things and sacrificing a lot of things to do that. So you just have to be willing to sacrifice a lot. And just know that that just kind of comes with the territory of building a diamond ship. Um, if you're wanting to leave, I will say, if you're a spiritual being or whatever, definitely pray about it or seek guidance from whatever higher power you believe in for guidance. But just know that, like my upline told me, Amway for some people is seasonal. And that is okay. You are not a failure in life if you choose to leave Amway. And whatever your purpose is and whatever your desire is, as long as you're working towards something, God's gonna navigate you towards that thing. So, because I love what I heard TD Jake say from the stage one time, where he was like, even if it's not the thing, if you make the wrong decision and it's not the thing, as long as you are moving, it's going to take you to the right thing. And so that is even what I did. Once I left Amway, I did not stop at trying to get to my thing. I continued to go and I was navigated into my thing. And now my thing has come a lot easier and it's more fulfilling and it's more fruitful for me. Because initially I thought I would never be successful without Amway. But I will say, if you do have the desire to leave, don't be afraid. You can be successful outside of Amway. It's not the only way to passive income. But you just have to know that you have to, continue to work towards whatever it is that you want to work towards.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what you're doing now, and kind of your transition to your ultimate purpose in life.
Yeah, so my ultimate purpose has always been to help women. But now more so since I've moved into my right thing. I call myself an affair recovery coach. So I help women who have been cheated on in their marriage, gain clarity, remove the shame and the abandonment and the fear of what's next, about what to do. So I don't tell a woman to leave or stay in a marriage after they've been cheated on, but I help them to make the best decision that is right for them. So I have the joy and the pleasure of doing life coaching with these women, and that is truly what I'm passionate about. Like I have a love for it. It's part of my story. So this is my give back to the world, is that now now I'm helping people go through what I went through. And then I do actually blog. So I am a blogger. So that's exciting. And again, it's like so many experiences because, like I said, like once I left Amway and started to tap into these other things, like you can make passive income. Like I make money from my reels now, just posting reels now. Like, so there's so many other ways to make income. So, also a blogger, which is amazing. So yes.
So how can people find you? Do you want to be found or some people?
Absolutely. So you can find me on IG, TikTok, and Facebook at Briaina_Latrice, and that's spelled BRIAINA_LATRICE. Or you can look me up on my website. If you are experiencing infidelity in your relationship and you're just needing someone to talk to, or a community of like-minded women who are battling with your same experience, you can always reach me at thegrassisgreener.org, and I do free 30-minute consultations.
Come on now, consultations? How
Yes,
about
ma'am.
it? Yes. But
Yes.
it was a pleasure getting your perspective, and I didn't realize how similar our perspectives were, and also, different in some aspects. So thank you for your time. Thank you for
Yes.
your transparency.
Yes.
And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that interview. If you want to contact Brianna, I have her information listed below in the description box. And I also have the link to the FTC, which I do in every video, but I think it's important to really talk about it and tell them your experience, because I do believe they're putting together an investigation to investigate LTD. If you want to reach out to me, you can do that. I have my email listed in the description box as well. Again, thanks to everybody who has watched the videos, emailed me, reached out to me, wanting to share their story on this channel. I think it's great that we all want to share our truth and get our stories out there. So if you want to do that, feel free to do that. I'd be happy to speak with you. Again, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.